Welcome to Uncovered. It's Wednesday. I'm Anthony. He's Ron. And together we're going to uncover the MAGA propaganda that is not covered by the mainstream and corporate media. Ron, maybe we should start with the Epstein cover-up. I think it's important that that's now how we start to describe it, because that's clearly what it is, a tranche of new documents, but not just images. We were hearing from Ben's reporting earlier today that there's potentially millions of items on hard drives now that are coming to light. And still, Donald Trump claims that he's never been on Epstein's plane. What's the latest from where you're sitting?
You know, this has just been bungled by the Trump White House from day one. I was thinking about this the other day. You know, when they first came into office, there was virtually no Democrats paying any attention to this issue. There wasn't any Democrat on January 20th saying, we want the Epstein files. Like, it was a handful of fringy Republicans that were saying that, you know, MAGA people. And you had Kash Patel and Bongino going there. So imagine if in the middle of that, when the whole firestorm was going on with Doge making all the cuts and Trump nominating all these crazy people, all the pardons, the January 6th pardon, all the mania. I mean, literally there was like 5 major controversies a day. If they'd have just put this stuff out in one big gigantic batch back in January, like this would have fizzled, I think, politically. I mean, I don't know that many Democrats would have even ratcheted on to any of this stuff. And it would have just kind of kicked around, you know, the right-wing conspiracy world, and you know, maybe some names get brought up, pictures get floated, but Trump didn't want to do that. And so it created this massive Streisand effect where everybody, you know, I think every Democrat was just like, whoa, when they saw like Bongino threatening to quit, you know, Patel and Bondi fighting, how much the right wing was furious by Trump not putting this stuff out. I think what happened is all the Democrats were like, whoa, there's got to be something big here. There has to be a lot of stuff in here that hurts Trump. And so that's when I think a lot of Democrats started going, well, we need to dig into this. So, I mean, them fighting it, then delaying it, dribbling things out now, it just has called 100 times more attention to this than would have if they'd have handled it properly. And they continue to bungle this every single day as they're dribbling things out. They're fighting over whether things are authentic or not. I mean, just take, for example, just one example of that card, the letter that was allegedly sent by Epstein to Larry Nassar, right? If that was fake, as they're contending now, why didn't they put out an FBI report or some kind of report attached to that said, this is not authentic, here's why we believe it is. Right. Instead, they just put it out, let everybody run wild, and then they come out with just a statement from DOJ. It's not even like an FBI report or anything. It's just a statement saying this is not real, here's why, and their reasons why it wasn't real are like kind of shaky. So it's just like from minute one, this whole thing has been bungled, and I think it's not going to get any better anytime soon for them.
I have a couple of things to say about this. Firstly, they're now pivoting to claim that a lot of the material is fake. And yep. I fear that is going to be a route that they're now going to go down and something they're going to stick to, because, as you say, they cannot cover up this many documents. You know, there was that image of Trump with the girl, and they redacted that, and then they put it back out again. And so the kind of the toing and the froing and the withdrawing and the redactions, it's too much for them. They don't even have the staff. I mean, weren't they like requesting volunteers to come and kind of go through and help with redactions? So they're in a kind of terrible place. My other fear, though, is that the Democrats are putting all their eggs in the Epstein basket to try and bring down Trump.
You know, this is a very good point that you just made, because I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Because we went through months and months and months where basically every time you'd put out a new story about something really important, you would get literally every single time, like, that's a distraction from Epstein, from Democrats. Right. You know, that's a distraction. That everything was a distraction. And it's like, wait a minute. No, the war in Ukraine is not a distraction from Epstein. Venezuela is not a distraction from Epstein. These things are like, garnishing the wages of people who are behind on student loan payments. That's not a distraction from Epstein. There's a lot of terrible, awful stuff that they are doing. The pardons, the crypto scams. I mean, one after another, the ballroom. These things are awful in and of themselves. And my concern, is that Democrats get so caught up in Epstein, which is important. I mean, I'm not going to question that. I've written about Epstein probably more than anybody in America at this point. I mean, every single day. But I refuse to be distracted from all of the other issues that are very important. And I would say as far as like, I'm talking about just the rank and file activist Democrats, I think are getting very caught up in this. But I will say, like, members of Congress aren't. There's, a small handful of Democrats in Congress, Ro Khanna, Garcia, there's 7 or 8 that are all over this.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I think Democrats in Congress have stayed out of it.
Well, there's no organizing. I mean, I appreciate that people like Ro Khanna are doing the work on this, but, split up the jobs amongst the congressional Democrats and give them, say, right, you're focusing on Trump trying to take over Greenland, and you're focusing on Trump trying to go to war with Venezuela, and actually show us some smidgen of organization. Because, as with this kind of constitutional republic system where no one really gets involved until there's an election cycle, it is just so depressing that people feel like they have to sit on their hands until we're into the midterms, and it's going to be too late by then.
What you are asking for tends to happen when you're in the majority, because then you're running committees.
Right.
And then each committee is going to be launching investigations on the thing that they have oversight over. And I expect next year for every committee in the House, I definitely think we're going to take the House. Every committee in the House, and maybe the Senate, if we take that, will be actively doing investigations, subpoenaing people, bringing them in every single day.
Yeah.
And so that does tend to happen when you have the majority. But what you're saying is, why can't you do some of that in the minority?
Right.
Well, you can't hold the hearings and you can't have subpoena power, but you could still kind of do that in a shadow.
But they did try. They did try and do shadow hearings, and it did work for a while. But why did it fizzle out?
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. There's definitely a lot of work that needs to be done on a lot of different things. I mean, you just think about the Judiciary Committee, on the pardons, on Jack Smith, all kinds of stuff. The Armed Services Committee on all the stuff that Hegseth is doing in the military.
Right.
I mean, there's so much out there that needs to happen. And my other fear is that, we're going to get sidetracked on another Trump impeachment or something. And that everything that's going to be the big focus. That instead of doing 25 major investigations on important stuff, we're going to be caught up in another impeachment that's really going to go nowhere. I mean, because you need 2/3 vote to convict in the Senate. So we're going to impeach Trump for the 3rd time and spend, 6 months on that,
right,
instead of all this other stuff, when it's going to go nowhere. I mean, what's the point?
Let's take a quick look at Trump being asked about Epstein and his latest excuse.
Thank you, Mr. President. Were you surprised by the number of photos of Bill Clinton in the Epstein Files? And can you commit to their
by
full?
What?
And were you surprised by the number of photos of Bill Clinton in the Epstein Files? And can you commit to their full release by the end of the year? Some of the victims were protesting that too many of them were redacted.
I know there are a lot of people that are angry about all of the pictures of other people, but I think it's terrible. Look, I like Bill Clinton. I've always gotten along with Bill Clinton. I've been nice to him. He's been nice to me. We've always gotten along. Respect him. I hate to see photos come out of him, but this is what the Democrats, mostly Democrats, and a couple of bad Republicans are asking for. So they're giving their photos of me too. Everybody was friendly with this guy, either friendly or not friendly, but he was around. He was all over Palm Beach and other places. The head of Harvard was his best friend, Larry Summers, and Bill Clinton was a friend of his. But everybody was. I actually threw him out of Mar-a-Lago, and as a person that was in Mar-a-Lago, I threw him out. This is Mar-a-Lago. It's the hottest place I think it's the hottest place in the world, but it's the hottest place in Florida. And everybody would come here. He'd come here. We actually threw him out. But no, I don't like the pictures of Bill Clinton being shown. I don't like the pictures of other people being shown. I think it's a terrible thing. I think Bill Clinton's a big boy. He can handle it. But you probably have pictures being exposed of other people that innocently met Jeffrey Epstein years ago, many years ago, and they're, you know, highly respected bankers and lawyers and others, and they'll end up, because of guys like Massey, who's a real lowlife, whose polls are down to about 9%, by the way, in the great state of Kentucky. If you look at Kentucky, Kentucky is such a great place, but I don't know, they've got a couple of people on there that are very strange in terms of leadership, but Massey's a loser, and he likes it, and that he works with the Democrats. He's just being used by the Democrats, because what this whole thing is with Epstein is a way of trying to deflect from the tremendous success that the Republican Party has.
What is he even talking about? It's just gibberish. You know, Massey, Kentucky. Kentucky's doing terribly. This brain that he has, broken brain, triggering thoughts. I mean, firstly, he kind of admits the whole criminal scheme at the beginning there, doesn't he? Where he's going, well, they're probably going to see loads of photos of bankers and successful people with Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, okay, you've just endorsed the fact that this is all true. I mean, I am really very, very concerned about this man. But back to the story in hand. I mean, it's just denial after denial, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the American people can figure out, you know, we don't. Lots of politicians and public figures are in photos with bad people, you know,
Sure.
or people who end up doing bad things. There's lots of people in photos with O.J. Simpson, right? From before the murders, right? Does that mean that they're like complicit somehow in the murder because you took a photo with O.J. at a football game in the 80s? No. I mean, we can figure this stuff out. We understand, yes, that he traveled in a lot of different circles, but the thing is, he traveled in specific circles.
Yeah.
His whole, everything he did was about two things: money and young girls, women, you know, people that were prepubescent or, 18, 19, 20. That was his
inappropriate friends, to coin a phrase from the former Prince Andrew.
And he looked for wealthy, powerful people who are into the same thing.
Yeah.
Or at least who he thought were. So if he was at a random dinner party or an event with a bunch of people and had some photographs taken with them, there isn't anybody that's going to get worked up over that. But if we see him, you know, on Epstein Island, at his home, at his beach, like with Larry Summers, let's take for example, you know, 6 or 7 different times, you know, Larry's with him here and there and this year and that year. Well, then where there's smoke, there's fire. Yeah. And you know what? It's too bad, because if you hung out, it seems to me, from what I know about Epstein, it's virtually impossible for anyone to have hung out with Epstein for any length of time and not at some point become aware of what he was all about. And if you're going to claim that you didn't know, I mean, that's just preposterous. So no one's going to go after somebody who just took a photo with him. But there are going to be a lot of people in there that are going to be implicated. They're going to be named as people who abused girls. And so
but investigators are smart enough to decipher.
Where they may.
Yeah. You know? The other thing I guess we shouldn't forget is that there is more evidence coming out of the extortion racket that was involved here, where Epstein would effectively extort wealthy people.
Yep.
He'd connect them with young girls, children, and then he would potentially threatened that he had images of them and then extort them because there were these vast payments that were traveling back and forth.
That's why his financial records are so important, which we don't have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense how he got so rich, considering the job that he did. And so this is all coming out. So I want to show what Rokana posted just on this subject. He said, "You say you will produce every document required by law that Thomas Massey and I passed. Will you release the dozens of FBI 302 interview memos of survivors where they name other rich and powerful men who abused girls or covered it up? It's a simple question." This was in response to Todd Blanche claiming there had been lots of sensationalism and even outright lies in the past few days about the Epstein Files. But let's separate fact from fiction. I mean, in hindsight now, especially after this new bunch of releases with Ghislaine Maxwell at the heart of all of this stuff, the fact that Blanche went and did this interview, this closed-door interview with her at the penitentiary, and then had her moved to a much lower security environment is so insulting to the victims. And we're hearing a lot of victims who are traditional Republican and Trump supporters now saying that they don't want anything to do with him, and they want him impeached, and they want Pam Bondi arrested and all sorts.
So on, what is it, Friday, the 26th, I'm putting out a Substack that is my top 10 villains of the Trump administration. The worst, the top 10 in ranking order, 1 through 10. And I'm not going to tell you who they are, but when I evaluated the criminal justice team of senior appointees, which is, Kash Patel, Bondi, Blanche,
yeah,
and yes, to a lesser extent, Dan Bongino. You look at, that's basically like the law enforcement team.
Mm-hmm.
I settled on Blanche as the worst of that group. I think that everyone has paid so much attention to Kash because of his foolishness and dipshittery and the girlfriend stuff.
Yeah.
And Bondi has sort of been more of the face on television, and people hate Bondi. But I really think the evil person behind everything that's going on at DOJ is Blanche. I think he is absolutely the worst. So I won't tell you where he's ranked in my top 10, but he made the list. And let me tell you, it was extremely difficult to get to 10. I mean, I have like 23 on my list that I agonized. So, because it's like, how do you leave some of these people off? There's some horrible people left off, but Blanche is the problem. And Blanche, keep in mind, was Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer going in, and that's exactly what he is still today.
Right.
Even though he was appointed specifically by Trump to be his criminal defense lawyer on all things Epstein and other matters. And that seems to be what he has been doing on virtually a full-time basis. So, I think that he is the guy to look at. He is the guy that's covering all this stuff up. And what Khanna is asking for there, look, one person could have done redactions on those FBI reports in a couple of days. There's absolutely no reason for those to come out. The reason why Khanna is asking for them, and the reason why they haven't put them out yet, is because that is going to be some of the most incriminating, damaging material. I believe what we have seen so far is a tiny tip of the iceberg. It's like literally less than 1% of the explosive materials. They continue to drag their feet and hold this back, and it may end up in the courts to get some of this stuff out.
Okay, let's move on from one horrific subject to another, and this is that Trump, out of the blue, has announced that he's got a special envoy in place to Greenland, Jeff Landry. Now, as amusing as it is, when you watch Trump basically say, we've got to get Greenland, we have to take Greenland. I mean, because he's like in clown's makeup and has tiny hands, people just kind of think it's all a bit of a joke. But if you're Danish or a Greenlander, this is deadly serious. And now the European Union have stepped up, and Macron in France, and people are saying, if you attack Greenland, if you try and take Greenland, you will then be at war with Europe.
I think Macron was in Greenland yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, to kind of show solidarity. He actually flew there. Yeah, I mean, I think we all thought this was dead, right?
Right.
Vance went there, and they didn't even let him, get off the military base. They didn't welcome him to any events. And then, we had Charlie Kirk went there with Donald Trump Jr., which was a disaster, a ridiculous excursion. And that went nowhere. That was all right before their election. And I think what they were hoping is maybe that election would put somebody in power who was in favor of doing this. The election did not go their way. The people resoundingly rejected any sort of attempt by the United States to meddle in their affairs. And it all kind of died down and went away. And then, lo and behold, out of the blue here this week, Trump appoints a new special envoy to go there and try and persuade the people in Greenland to change. And it seems like, listening to Landry as I have, and he's sort of a cartoon character, this guy. I mean, he's an old Cajun swamp, Louisiana guy who's not the brightest tool in the shed. He has no foreign policy. He was a sergeant in the army. That's pretty much the extent of his, if you want to call it, foreign policy experience. Right. He has no foreign policy experience. I don't even know if he's been to a foreign country in his life, this guy. I mean, he's right out of the swamps of Louisiana. So you're going to send this guy to Greenland. And supposedly what Trump is trying to do here is he tried to stick approach with Vance and all them to hit him over the head. And now Landry's supposed to go there to sweet talk him or talk him into it, being a nice guy. But I mean, I don't understand this. And why is Trump bringing this back up again? Again, is it a distraction? No, I don't think so. I think Trump has talked about Greenland for a long time. Yeah. For at least a decade. He is genuinely interested in taking over Greenland. This is not an unserious thing. This is very serious. And you just hope that, look, there's conflict in Europe across the board, whether it's security, whether it's them finding the members of the EU over the Elon Musk thing. I mean, we are literally almost at war with the EU on a variety of fronts, and this is one of them.
Landry apparently, according to Trump, asked Trump if he could do this. That's how Trump has positioned this, which seems a bit weird, but there we are.
Landry said the opposite. Landry said Trump asked him, but you're right. They're different stories about that.
So there's that, but their kind of argument is, well, yes, the Danes might have their ownership of it, dating back centuries, but why don't we ask the Greenlanders? What do the people of Greenland want? And this is like a hostile takeover. I mean, this is no different, Ron, to Russia invading Ukraine and claiming that Ukraine is Russian territory. And that leads me to believe that this is all instigated by Putin. It's Putin that wants America to take Greenland so that that alliance, that Russia, US, Greenland alliance, China, Iran, etc., will be the future kind of great superpower of the world.
Yep. I think I heard Trump say this week, or a senior member of his administration say we are going to get Greenland. Yes. That's what they say. Look, we are going to. It's not like we hope to or we want to, or no. It's a we will have Greenland eventually.
Yeah,
it's like,
and then you will have a third world war on your hands.
Yeah, I mean that's just nuts. So yeah.
Let's take a look at Jeff Landry.
300 years, and we have lived under more flags than anyone living in the continental United States. But guess what? The flag that we ended up with is the greatest flag, right, Winston? And that's the United States of America, because that's a flag that stands for liberty, opportunity, and security. And it's done well for us. And all we're going to do is go have us a great conversation with those folks in Greenland. They're in the Western Hemisphere, fits inside the Monroe Doctrine, and we're going to bring them some great Cajun food.
Lord help us.
What are they going to load up some of that fried chicken and put it on a plane to Greenland?
Yeah, that's going to do it.
That'll be delicious.
That is going to swing centuries of history. Chicken. I'm very worried about this. I'm very worried about how Europe responds, because Europe does feel a great sense of responsibility and connection, not just with Greenland, but with Denmark, of course. And this is, all our eyes obviously are often on Russia and Ukraine. But this could turn out to be the bigger fire, and that does worry me. Certainly listening to the language of Macron and other leaders, because obviously they're behind Ukraine and wanting to support Ukraine and doing that, financially and strategically. But if you put Denmark on their plate as well, this is an awful lot of extra money that they're going to have to find, military capability, and I've never even considered what the outcome would be if the European Union or NATO without the US goes to war with America. Have you?
No, definitely not.
But that's what we're talking about, Ron. I mean, it's not hypothetical anymore.
Well, yeah, I suppose you're right. I mean, what I think is going to happen is you're going to have a serious European army, a serious united European military. That's probably what's going to come out of this as a result of, I think that was going to happen from the U.S. walking away from Ukraine and NATO. But, this probably throws more gasoline on that fire. I mean, we've been talking about this for a year, thinking, hey, the Europeans are finally going to realize this. And they keep saying we get it now, but I guess I'll wait and see till it actually happens.
Yeah, but it goes back to Vance's
countries that have ramped up their military spending.
It goes back to JD Vance's speech back in February, I think it was, at the Munich Security Conference. I mean, that was
because we fully intend to interfere in their elections.
100%. Yeah. And then the other twist to it is this story about the State Department sanctioning former EU officials now.
It's nuts.
It is nuts. I'll just read. This is the Undersecretary of State who has posted, we've sanctioned Thierry Breton, a mastermind of the Digital Services Act, in August 2024 while serving as European Commissioner for Internal Markets and Digital Services. He published a letter using the DSA to threaten Elon Musk ahead of his live stream interview with President Trump. Before the interview, Breton ominously reminded Musk of X's legal obligations and ongoing formal proceedings for alleged non-compliance with illegal content and disinformation requirements under the DSA. Just explain to people what this is, because, it's a little complex, but this is actually about, as you just said, going into Europe and sanctioning Europeans now just for doing their jobs.
Yes, it's complicated, but I totally understand every bit of this as I followed it for a long time.
Sure.
So the U.S. tech companies, Zuckerberg, Musk, the people who own these social media platforms, have butted heads with the EU for 4 or 5 years now over lack of content moderation, and they've gotten some fines. Both platforms have, maybe TikTok has, a couple others as well.
Yeah,
they've gotten some fines, and they hate these fines, and so this is one of the many things that Elon Musk wanted out of the $270 million he spent to get Trump elected. He wanted SpaceX, to get more money. He wanted all kinds of different stuff for his EV stuff. I mean, there's a lot that he wanted for himself and his companies. And this is one of those things. He wanted because when Biden was in power, when Democrats were in power, they're not going to do anything to help out Elon Musk in his business dispute with the EU. They're going to be like, that's your business. If you can't play by their rules, if you're going to do business in Europe, you have to go by Europe's rules. Same thing with China. China bans it.
Right.
Russia bans it. Okay. So they don't complain about that. They play by their rules. So, but they have this special animosity towards the Europeans. So I knew that this was coming, and so when they passed this rule, this new act, which was passed, I don't know, by like 6 months ago, Musk was screaming about it then, that this is going to be a big problem, blah, 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 blah. And then, so who is running this? Breton, of course, is the former EU commissioner. It's a lot of ex-EU officials that now are sort of administering this content moderation program, which also infuriates them. So the Americans. So basically what is happening is when they hit him with the fine, Musk with the fine 2 weeks ago, I said, well, first thing that happened is Musk went nuts, was screaming about it all day, posting about it all day. And then I watched, who is anyone in the administration going to say anything? Yes, JD Vance that night posted, this is unacceptable. We're going to do something about it. And then Marco Rubio did too. So I posted on social media that night. I said, the U.S. is about to intervene and go after Europe to protect Elon Musk, to try and undo these fines and shield him from future fines. We are going to use the power of the U.S. government to basically intervene in a business dispute between Musk and Europe, which we should not do. We should have no business doing that. We're basically acting as Musk's lawyers. So what is the sanction? The sanction is a travel ban. All of these officials associated with this program cannot come to the United States right now.
The leader of the Liberal Democrat Party in the UK has really kind of, in his Christmas message, has lashed out at right-wing conspiracy theories, social media trolls, but specifically this. And and it effectively is saying, this is like an act of war, effectively what they're doing here. Mm-hmm. And, obviously there's different ways of looking at it. But, in the UK and certainly in Europe, there are strict guidelines on hate speech. And just so people understand, what Trump and Vance and Musk as a free speech absolutist claim is that any speech should be free. And even if it is racist or white supremacist or offensive or abusive, that is free speech.
By the way,
yeah,
this particular fine this time is not even about that. It wasn't even about any content or any speech. It was about sort of their technical rules, like verification, how they verify people that are like not even real people, or they're pretending to be somebody else, or the list of violations, there was like 5, had nothing to do with content. Actually, it had everything to do with the way that the platform is run, not taking down false information, that kind of thing. It's just sort of like, this is interfering in their elections, interfering with their military, interfering with their domestic politics. And now, now travel bans on European officials because they're enforcing their own laws. It's just one thing after another, and student visas and all that. One thing after another, we are initiating and starting conflicts, Greenland, with Europe. Why? I have no idea, other than the fact that Stephen Miller and JD Vance and that whole crew, Elon Musk, hates the Europeans. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
But so does Putin. And a lot of this, I hate to keep dragging it back to the Kremlin, but, as I watch from a distance America pivot to becoming part of the Russian Federation, and that gap, that the Atlantic Ocean seems to get wider and wider. And to me, this is why they want Greenland. And this is why they're kind of talking about rare earth and various things. This is why they wanted Canada. It's all geographic. And so lots of answers to this can be found if you actually just look at a world map and see what it is that Putin is trying to do. And infiltrating Trump, I mean, he's been doing it for decades, obviously, but now we're really seeing the kind of fruits of Putin's labor. This all connects with the news this week that the CBS episode of 60 Minutes was pulled at the 11th hour. Of course, this was a special episode about CECOT, which is this maximum security prison. It's actually a concentration camp, and that's now how it's been described after seeing this. So
that's fair. Yeah.
So so they weren't allowed to show it on network television, but it got leaked to the Canadians, and now it's online. Now, I've seen the 15, 16-minute section. I'm sure you have too. It is absolutely horrific, and it is any wonder why the Trump regime decided to intervene and pull this show. The Stephen Miller, who you just mentioned, is not very happy about it.
And every one of those producers at 60 Minutes engaged in this revolt, fire them. Clean house, fire them. That's what I say, Charlie.
And
yeah, Charlie didn't seem too impressed with that opinion. What's yours?
Well, Stephen Miller just may make my top 10, by the way. I don't want to give anything away.
Yes, the criminal of criminals.
But there is a chance that he will be in my top 10.
Okay.
This is an interesting saga, because what we saw was the Ellisons, Larry and David, taking over the Paramount, taking over the 60 Minutes and CBS and buying that franchise, which Trump has hated for years and wanted everyone fired and wanted everything changed. He also hates the late night hosts at CBS, Colbert, among others. He hates all the TV hosts, a lot of them. So he wanted major changes to be made, and they needed approval of their merger, which they ended up getting. And, they settled the lawsuit again, that when Trump sued 60 Minutes over the edit stuff, which was a ridiculous lawsuit, and they settled it. And then they hire Barry Weiss, which I think really set up even more red flags, because it's like, wait a minute. I mean, I don't know that I would describe her as a conservative, although many on the left think that she is. I think that she's, I don't know what she is ideologically. I know she's extremely pro-Israel. That, she's sort of like Fetterman in that respect. She talks about Israel all the time. I think she talks about being anti-woke. I mean, that was sort of her whole thing with her free press. I think pushing back on a lot of the narratives of the left and stuff like that. So, but I think a lot of people didn't really know how she was going to be as a network executive. Well, this was her first major decision, and I think that it's really shook people up to the core that she rolled in there after this thing had already been vetted, approved by the lawyers, everything else, literally like 2 days before she's going to air, and she yanks the show. The PR over this was just a disaster. She apparently didn't know that Canada was going to show this. She didn't know how distribution of television works, because she's never been in the television business before, even though she's running one of the most important networks.
She was a journalist.
She's an independent journalist. I mean, it's basically like putting me in charge of CBS. I'll be the first one to raise my hand and say, I'm not qualified to run CBS News. But I mean, she may have had more time in journalism than me, but
But this is a theme with kind of Trump people, isn't it?
Yeah. She had
take the job, worry about it afterwards.
Again, it's only going to get worse, I think, because I think she's going to move a lot of people that have been at CBS for a long time out of there. She's talking about the people the names that keep getting tossed around that she's talking about bringing in are horrifying. I mean, more town halls. We've already seen she did the Erica Kirk thing, which was a total disaster from a ratings standpoint and PR standpoint. But, and she seems to want to make herself the face of the network, which is bizarre, because I think she's pretty unlikable, not charismatic, not especially interesting person. So she's now going to be like not only running the network, but the face of the network and the voice of the network.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they're doing.
Maybe they'll rename it in her name, like Trump did with the Kennedy Center. This seems to be the in thing. Let's take a look at a former CBS 60 Minutes producer kind of explaining, he's an investigative reporter, explaining how this move is actually going to effectively promote this episode. More people now are likely to see it because it got pulled.
This was a train wreck. I mean, really unusual, almost unprecedented to yank a story at the last minute like that. I've seen it along with thousands of other people, thanks to that bootleg copy that the Canadians put out. It's a really strong investigative piece, squarely in the tradition of 60 Minutes. But here's the good news. If Barry Weiss thought she was burying this story, she's done exactly the opposite. It's become a cause célèbre. I think there's going to be tremendous pressure for CBS to air this. I can remember when 60 Minutes spiked a story about a big tobacco whistleblower back in the late 90s, and that later became a movie starring Al Pacino. I think this is going to have legs. And there's going to be tremendous pressure on CBS to air it, with the result that it becomes, that it gets even more attention than it would have.
The thing about the 15-minute episode that I've seen is it really paints the Trump regime in the worst light, because it exposes the fact that all of these people they claimed were gang members, MS-13 and everything else, had no criminal record. They were just, regular people taken to this horrendous facility, chained, ankles and wrists and chained, had their heads shaved. They had to sleep with the lights on. They had no mattresses. They had to sleep on kind of metal framed beds. And they were put into solitary confinement in the pitch black if they didn't kneel all day. This is torture. This is what the American government is doing, sending people to a torture environment. And then, of course, there was that moment when Kristi Noem showed up and did that kind of tour, and that scene where she's standing in front of all of these gang members, and it turned out that those gang members were not the people that Trump had deported at all, that they'd purposely moved people around with their tattoos showing to just labor the point of the success of this scheme. I mean, this is if the U.S. still subscribed to international law and the criminal court system, then all of them would be up in front of a judge or multiple judges in the case of The Hague. This is very, very serious.
And what we know is happening is that Stephen Miller is driving immigration policy much more than anybody else. I mean, he literally is running the show. It's not Noam. Noam really has nothing to do with it. She's the show pony. She's someone who just goes on TV a lot and does photo ops. It's Homan, Bovino, the border chief, and Miller running immigration. Trump is kind of out of the loop too. And so it's as bad as it could possibly be. I mean, Trump ran on this issue. It was his number one issue. The reason why he ran on this issue is because this is the issue that polled best for him. This is what a strong majority of Americans said that they wanted to happen, was the border to be secured, less migration, and deportations of criminals. And again, we've talked about this, the way that Stephen Miller and many in the Trump administration interpret that word criminal is every person who came into the United States during the Trump administration is a criminal,
right?
Just by seeking asylum, right?
Yeah, well, they've criminalized asylum. That's right. Basically, in a nutshell,
what the American people. So when they hear criminal alien, they think someone in the United States. But the average American, that's not what they think. They're thinking someone in a gang who's killed someone, murdered someone, drug dealer, whatever. And so what has happened is the number one issue. I mean, even 6 months ago, when Trump was underwater in every other category, foreign policy, domestic policy, the economy, inflation, prices, he was still up there pretty decently in the border and deportations and immigration. But even that has evaporated now, because what has happened is the American people have seen how they're administering this program, and it is not the way that they thought it was going to happen. They're seeing, not only are they seeing just average people who have asylum claims pending, who have been in the United States for 20 years, 30 years, their relatives, their family, their kids being tackled at Home Depot and dragged off, and their businesses closing, etc. They're not only seeing that, but then they're seeing people who aren't criminals sent to places like this, concentration camps. So Trump has literally taken like his strongest possible issue that he could have from a polling standpoint and just blown it up to where the American people has now literally turned on him. The only issue he's now above water on, where he's like 51%, is securing the actual border itself, not the deportation part of it. The border, like not allowing crossings. Yeah. That's the only issue right now that he's over 50% on, which is just unbelievable, because they let Stephen Miller have a blank check and Holman and Bovino, and they ran wild with it.
And we should remind people that Stephen Miller and these people are far right kind of neo-Nazi style individuals. Absolutely. Right? And they are the last people for them. Yeah, they are the last people that you would ever put in charge of something like this. And yet Trump just, I mean, it's truly terrifying. And I still worry that the EU and the allies, or former allies as they should be described, of the US isn't quite getting the seriousness of the Nazification of American policy. Even criminalizing asylum is in contravention of international law, and the US just does not subscribe to it anymore.
They said that this was announced, I think, a week ago, that the only asylum claims that they will legitimately look at now is white South Africans. Yeah, that's it. They will not accept any other people from any other place in the world on an asylum claim.
Yeah. Didn't he say that why can't we have some Swedes? Why can't we have some...
Yeah.
He wanted.
Well, they're not going to seek asylum.
He wanted
there aren't
white
many
people.
Swedes being persecuted.
Right. Meanwhile, Trump's focus is on things like Stephen Colbert, as you mentioned. This is where Trump's most at home. Stephen Colbert is a pathetic train wreck with no talent or anything else necessary for show business success. Now, after being terminated by CBS but left out to dry, he's actually gotten worse. Along with his non-existent ratings, Stephen is running on hatred and fumes, a dead man walking. CBS should put him to sleep now. It is the humanitarian thing to do. I don't think I've ever heard Trump use the word humanitarian. And then this other posting, if network newscasts and their late-night shows are almost 100% negative to President Donald J. Trump, MAGA, and the Republican Party, shouldn't their very valuable broadcast licenses be terminated? I say yes. These things are all linked. The 60 Minutes trying to shut down any form of dissent, criminalizing dissent. This is totalitarianism. This has gone beyond authoritarianism as I see it.
Yeah, couple points. As with all Trump posts, always pay attention to the time and date stamp, because that was 12:36 in the morning on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
I mean, on Christmas Eve, in the middle of the night, dead of the night, after his 4th consecutive day in a row playing golf, he is up watching the various late night comics roast him, and rage tweeting, after midnight about them. So what he's doing there is when he talks about shouldn't they lose their broadcast license, he knows that that's not going to happen. That's not where they're going with all this. What he's doing is something he's talked about from time to time over the years, which is a lesson that he learned from Bobby Knight. Bobby Knight is the legendary Hall of Fame, controversial college basketball coach, now dead, who coached Indiana University for many decades, won national championships, and was famous for, in the Olympics, I remember, what, he throw a chair at one of the referees in like the 76 Olympics. He was known for berating and screaming at referees throughout the game. That's what he did. That was his shtick. And Trump and Bobby Knight were good buddies. And what Trump has told this story a few times over the years, that Knight told him, because he said he would ask him, he's like, well, why do you do that? Because I've never ever seen a ref change their call. After you've done yelling, I've never seen him change their mind. So why are you doing it? And what Knight told Trump years and years ago was, I'm working the refs. I'm not doing it for this call. I'm doing it for the next call.
Yeah.
Because the next time he wants to think about ruling against my team on something, he might not do it because he doesn't want to get yelled at again. He doesn't want me in his face again. So I'm working him, not for now, but for the future. And that's what Trump is doing here. When he's threatening the broadcast licenses, threatening to not approve their mergers, he's not actually going to do that. What he wants is just more favorable coverage.
Right.
He wants things like what happened with the 60 Minutes piece to happen. He wants Barry Weiss to sit down, watch that piece and go, oh shit, Donald Trump is going to go ballistic when he sees this. We need to pull this. Yeah. That's what he's looking for when he makes these kind of posts. Right. And he also wants people fired.
All networks to behave like Fox, basically, state regime media. Okay, we have to take a quick break, but we're going to come back, sticking with the theme of white supremacy, far-right nationalism. It's JD Vance at the Turning Point conference, where he proudly announced that you don't have to apologize for being white anymore.
That's a relief.
Yeah, we'll do that next. Have you ever fallen in love with something online only to see the price and then think, I just can't afford it? Well, that's where dupe.com comes in. It's a genius tool that helps you find high-quality, budget-friendly versions of the expensive items you've been eyeing. It's really easy to use. Just type dupe.com / in front of any product URL, and it shows you lookalikes that won't drain your savings account. And these aren't shady knockoffs. Most of the time, they're made in exactly the same factories, just sold under a different name, with a way scarier price tag. So that $6,000 couch that influencers are always lounging on, Dupe will probably find it for $1,200. Same vibe, same plushness, but you don't have to sell a kidney to afford it. It's totally free, dangerously addictive, and blowing up on TikTok for good reason. So, if you've got expensive taste but not the budget to go with it, dupe.com is your new best friend. Go ahead and make your dream home happen without maxing out on your credit card. And here's the kicker. For a limited time, the first 10,000 people who go to dupe.com/uncovered will get 500 dupe points instantly. Redeemable for gift cards, no catch. But spots are limited, so don't wait. Use your dupe points and gift cards to make the most of your holiday shopping. Go to dupe.com/uncovered. Welcome back to the pack. You can find links to our sponsors down in the description below. Okay, Ron, tell us about this Turning Point USA conference that just happened, or is it still happening? I mean, it's a few days long, isn't it? And all the kind of Charlie Kirk fans pile in, and Erica Kirk's obviously up there, and she's now in charge, and all the big hitters are there, including the Vice President JD Vance. I mean, what's the thinking behind these events?
So this is called America Fest. This is like their big annual event that Charlie Kirk put together, sort of modeled after CPAC, but CPAC got very old and stale, and Matt Schlapp kind of got discredited after he, was grabbing the junk of his young male drivers, even though he pretends to be a married Christian. He got a lot of backlash from that. So Kirk started this thing 7-8 years ago, bringing in all these heavy hitter guest speakers, paying them, all that kind of stuff. And, all the pyrotechnics, there's all kinds of crazy stuff that he did. But, he did put together a legitimately big event, huge, well-attended event. And it's their like big annual fundraiser. People pay to attend these things. It makes a lot of money. It's televised by Fox, from parts of it are. Yeah. So this is their big event. And, this is one of the things I said after Charlie Kirk was killed, after the dust settled. What I said to the guys at Midas is I said, he's irreplaceable. Like there's literally, I look at that organization top to bottom. There's no one in who works at that organization who can take his place. He's literally a major, major loss for the MAGA movement, for the Republican Party, and for this. And so this is the first event where he's not there. And one of Charlie's strengths, obviously I'm a guy who couldn't stand Charlie Kirk, didn't like him, went after him all the time. But, I recognize what he was good at. And what he was good at was as a peacemaker in the MAGA movement. There's a lot of these factions and these groups that hate each other, that don't like each other for a variety of different reasons. They have their different agendas. And Charlie was always that guy who could sort of bring them together, mend fences, get them to talk, smooth things over, and keep everybody together. And so he really was, in terms of that toxic movement, probably the most unifying figure among all of them, in terms of he was the one guy that everybody liked. Almost
unifying is not a word I would ever expect to hear.
Or the MAGA movement.
I understand.
Or the MAGA movement.
I understand, yeah.
He held because Trump isn't interested in trying to keep all of them together or keeping them getting along. But Kirk was the one who did all the phone calls, did the text messages, got people to get along. That's why I said when he's not there, like there's no one else that can step up to do that. And so we saw that on vivid display. This is the first one that they had of these big annual events without Kirk. And it turned into an absolute shit show where just everyone is going at each other. First day, Ben Shapiro gets up and trashes Tucker Carlson, who is speaking later that day. And then Tucker gets up and trashes him, and they're going at Megyn Kelly. I mean, they were all going at each other for days and days and days, whether it's Alex Jones or whatever. Yeah, all these different factions. And if Charlie was there, this never would have happened.
Interesting.
And it really goes to show you that this movement is in trouble. This movement is literally breaking apart at the seams. It was, by the way, the event was Thursday through Sunday. They're still fighting about it today. Mm-hmm. I mean, I follow these guys every day. They're going at each other still from what happened at this event.
Well, before I show the JD Vance clip, let's look at the Ben Shapiro clip first, where he kind of comes on with a very different mindset, as you say, trashes Alex Jones, and let's take a look.
We have a duty to propose solutions. That's why we have to talk about our problems in order to find the solutions. That's what politics was supposed to be about, after all, finding solutions to our common problems. If we speak endlessly about the problems we face, without ever positing a solution other than wrecking the system or centralizing power in a cult-like figure, we are not finding solutions. We are merely making problems worse. Just asking questions, positing vague conspiracies, raving like Alex Jones about the secret confederacies that control your life, none of it makes your life better. None of it. In fact, it makes your life markedly worse. That's because if you truly come to believe that nothing in your life is in your control, you can't even take control of your own life. You despair of your ability to change your own circumstances, and then you fail. And you must not fail.
I'm amazed they didn't turn his mic off halfway through that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not a Shapiro fan by any means, but what he did there is very, very brave thing for him to do. I mean, that was just a small piece of his speech, but he literally called out by name a lot of very famous people in the MAGA movement and basically said these guys are charlatans, they're grifters. You know, Ben is a traditional old school conservative. You know, he was very anti-Trump, just as Vance was in 2016, 2017. And he gradually sort of realized that he's got to sort of play ball and go along with Trump and Trumpism eventually. Yeah. But he's not all in on what Trump is all about.
Well, you called him a cult leader in that.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
you know, people
for him to go in front of that audience
leader.
And basically say the people you're following are all hucksters and shysters and stuff, I thought was very, very brave. And I think he lost a lot of people when he said that, and he got attacked for days and days and days. But, you know, he's not alone that thinks that. He's just the only one who was willing to stand up in front of those people and say it.
Megyn Kelly responded. She was not happy about it. Let's take a look.
I'm not their daddy. And I resent that he thinks he's in a position to decide who must say what to whom and when. Thank you. So I don't think we are friends anymore. I've been a very good friend to Ben. Nobody knew who the heck Ben Shapiro was when I started putting him on my shows on the Fox News channel, and I helped make him a star. And I've been very, very good to Ben over the years, and he's been good to me too. He just recently came on my tour, as did you, and I gave him the most kind introduction I could possibly give him because I know that he's losing subscribers a lot. And so I tried to do something nice for him by giving him a long 10-minute intro and personally vouching for him. And we mixed it up on Israel out on stage. It wasn't Israel because we're on the same place on Israel. We mixed it up over whether Tucker Carlson should be excommunicated from the conservative movement, which I do not believe. And thank you. And when it was over, we hugged, said goodbye, and then we had a nice text exchange a couple days later saying our friendship was important to us. And the next thing I saw was him attacking me on stage last night as a coward. So that's not friendship, and I think that's fine with me, with friends like that.
Infighting on stage.
It was like that for days and days. I mean, what Shapiro is saying is, look, our movement is populated by several really toxic people.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theorists, terrible, nasty, horrible people with bad intent. And they're some of the most successful people in our movement. And it's up to the normal people in the movement who know better, like Megyn Kelly, to stand up and to speak out. The problem is this movement does not police its own. There are no guardrails. There is nothing that's unacceptable. Anything that Tucker Carlson says from a Nazi standpoint or off the rails, like, it's all fine. Yeah. There's no one in this movement who will stand up to any of them and say, that's too far. That's too much. You can't go there. I mean, and Ben dared to do it, and look, he's being, ripped apart.
Well, it's free speech, Ron, apparently. Let's go to the star of the show at this event, and that's JD Vance, the vice president, who, I mean, he really is setting himself up to, be the next president of the United States. We even heard Erica Kirk at this event say that she's going to go out of her way to guarantee that Vance is the 48th president of the United States. And that this movement is behind him and all of that. So we know that the endorsement is there. We know that this movement is vast and is wealthy, has the funds to help him in this. But the way he handled this speech was just incredible. Here's 3 little clips. I mean, to watch the speech in its entirety, which I've done, it is just awful. It is vile bile, as I describe it. Let's take a look.
And in the meantime, what are the Democrats offering you in the meantime? I got to say, ladies and gentlemen, they are not sending their best. Omar Fateh was Ilhan Omar's candidate for mayor of Mogadishu. What? I mean, Minneapolis. Little Freudian slip there. Oh, Jasmine Crockett. The record speaks for itself. She wants to be a senator, though her street girl persona is about as real as her nails. In the United States of America, you don't have to apologize for being white anymore.
We could do a whole hour on this. I don't really know where to start. Maybe we should do reverse order. I mean, you don't have to apologize for being white anymore suggests that, this far-right, white supremacist Christian nationalism has fully taken over. And if he's accusing Jasmine Crockett of an identity crisis, he's the shapeshifter. He's the guy who has gone from being a kind of gay liberal Trump hater to suddenly being this far-right suited and booted hedge fund manager / vice president. Things have changed for him also.
Yeah, I mean, this is a core pillar of the MAGA movement. If you're going to say, like, what are the 4 or 5 handful of things that they believe in, all of them to their core, as a fundamental belief, this is one of them, which is that in modern America, at least in the last couple decades, that white people are the most persecuted people and discriminated against people in America. Especially white Christians, especially white Christian men.
Yeah.
And that is their belief that, we're everybody's out to get us. And so that's what he's saying there. You don't have to apologize anymore. You can be proud to be white. You can be proud to be, Christian. And, as if there has been persecution. I mean, that's just the most ridiculous position that anybody could have, that that white people have been discriminated against in the United States of America is just insane. But it's that grievance, it's that anger, it's that resentment that he's feeding into. And the curious thing about Vance over the past year has been how much he continues to embrace the fringiest elements of the party. Mm-hmm. You would think that someone who's literally the heir apparent of this party, who's basically been handed the presidential nomination in 2028 on a silver platter, who went from a 4th place Senate candidate 2 years ago to now on the precipice of becoming president, would try and sort of continue to embrace Trumpism and what that's all about, but also try and broaden his appeal to the general public. He's done the exact opposite. He continues to pander and appeal his messaging to a smaller and smaller segment of the American public, to where literally everything he says now, and I listen to his speeches, cater to the very highly online social media far right.
Yeah.
And literally some of his reference points that he's talking about, the average American doesn't even know what he's talking about. That's the other curious thing about him. When I listen to him speak, I always think of things from the perspective of people who don't follow politics closely and aren't on social media. And everything he talks about, they literally would have no idea what he's saying.
Right.
Mogadishu, what are you talking about? Jasmine Crockett. Most Americans don't even know who Jasmine Crockett is, which would be a shock to maybe some of us who are really into politics. But the reality is they don't. They don't. But
it's just a racist dog whistle.
Member of Congress is.
That's all that line was a racist dog whistle.
It's racist dog whistle to the far right. But if you want to be president of the United States, you can't run on that kind of a platform.
Well, you can if you don't let people vote. I mean, I fear that's the direction that they're going,
He's darker. He's going to darker places than even Donald Trump in many respects.
100%. My other fear, because I heard Erica Kirk say this too, is that she said that there's already something like 8,500 chapters of this turning point movement in schools and colleges and universities. And she said that after her speech there was another 18,000. I mean, I don't believe the numbers.
Well,
but,
that's because they're threatening school systems.
Right. So what does this mean? Because there is no equivalence on the Democratic side. There is, this is what she's talking about is indoctrination, kind of educating people into this far-right nationalist mindset whilst they are still children, while they're still at school, while they're still at college. And to kind of grow the movement. And this is what the Nazis did, right? So this is a thing. But the Democrats don't have any policies like that in place. So what does this mean for the kind of future generations and their thinking in America?
Well, I mean, what they've done is they've weaponized the Kirk assassination by using that to leverage school districts, high schools. I think the Texas Attorney General literally mandated that every school have a turning point chapter, something like that.
Yeah.
So it went from sort of this semi-fringy movement they had turning point chapters at a lot of different colleges around the country, but not a terrible, huge number of members. But now what they're trying to do is force it down to the high school level and require schools to have these chapters, and they're using a lot of political pressure. And yeah, it is. It's all about the indoctrination of kids at the lower levels in right-wing politics, and that's really what Kirk's all about. But I still maintain that this organization is going to break apart without Kirk. I do not think that Erica Kirk and the people that she has surrounded herself with, like Jack Posobiec, who you just saw there on stage with Megyn Kelly, they are not leaders. They are not the type of people that can run a large organization like this national organization. So I think that they're getting a tremendous bump of momentum in the wake of what happened with Kirk. And once that momentum sort of fizzles out, then you got to actually run things. And that's when I think bad things are going to happen. But right now they're flush with cash. Yeah. They're flush with publicity.
Right.
So they're riding high, but check back 6 months from now is what I say.
Well, that's good to know, because I was feeling pretty desperate about it. The idea that, because obviously with the shutting down of the Department of Education,
Erica Kirk is not a leader.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
She's not a leader.
It feels so shady as well, doesn't it? The whole thing, it feels like a kind of money laundering operation.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Well, what's she doing today? She was out there hyping a new book, Charlie's last book that he wrote. She was out there today doing commercials. I saw a commercial for it this morning. So they're going to milk this financially and everything else as long as they can, the Charlie Kirk assassination. But again, at some point, that only goes so far.
I want to talk about a topic that really actually upset me a lot more than I thought it would. Now, I'm very much an environmentalist. I care enormously about planet and climate change, words that are not socially acceptable in the US anymore. And tragically, whenever I make a video for 5 Minute News and Midas Touch about climate change, it gets like a third of the views that any other videos get. People just do not have an appetite for it. And it's very frustrating, because it is literally bigger than all of this. It's bigger than politics. It's gonna, the planet is burning. But in the meantime, let's just keep arresting Greta Thunberg and everything will be okay.
We all have those issues where, like, mine is like these data centers AI, where I keep continuing to get people to try it, because that's like a big thing for me.
Right.
And like, people just they're not getting what the problem is.
The seriousness of it. So we'll talk about the data centers in just a sec. But let's first talk about these wind turbines, which Donald Trump calls windmills, much to the annoyance of the people of the Netherlands. This is he claims that China make them, but they don't use them. Well, China has more wind farms than any other country.
And
they are too, right. And Europe is all shifting to green energy, and the UK now is almost completely, not on fossil fuel. there is this huge shift right around the world, and the fact that the United States has completely gone the other direction, apart from leaving the Paris Climate Accord, but the shutting down of electric car subsidies and getting rid of electric chargers, and now General Motors and some of the big legacy car firms are dropping their electric vehicle range, all because of Donald Trump and his obsession with coal. Let's take a look at this news now. We're hearing from Doug Burgum that they are going to shut down 5 large offshore wind projects that are currently under construction and bringing thousands of jobs to these regions. Let's have a look.
What next action did you want to tell us about this morning?
Well, today we're sending notifications to the 5 large offshore wind projects that are under construction that their leases will be suspended due to national security concerns. During this time of suspension, we'll work with the companies to try to find a mitigation. But we've completed the work that President Trump has asked us to do. The Department of War has come back conclusively that the issues related to these large offshore wind programs create radar interference that creates a genuine risk for the U.S., particularly related to the where they are in proximity to our East Coast population centers.
Well, I mean,
yeah, none of that is true. This is what is so frightening, is that Trump's rhetoric about, birds are dying and you're going to get cancer from wind turbines and all this stuff. It's kind of forming part of U.S. Energy policy. More birds are killed flying into overhead power lines than get killed by wind turbines. It's just ridiculous. And then when did Trump ever care about the natural world anyway? So I just felt so sad, the fact that these leases are already in place, these construction projects are already underway, and they're like, oh, we're canceling the leases, it's over. We're talking about free, clean, green energy, and America doesn't want it.
Because what we know about Trump is he's not a long-term thinker. He doesn't think about 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what's the best thing. He thinks about what's the best thing tomorrow. I need to get the price of gas at the pump below $3 in Iowa tomorrow, and then I'll be the hero. So it's a couple different things going on here. It's part of that these renewables, they're a long-term thing. They don't pay off for years down the road, and that's not something that appeals to Donald Trump. Anything that happens after he's dead and gone doesn't matter to him. He wants satisfaction right now, and he wants personal glory. The other thing is he's completely 100% beholden to these oil companies, the energy companies, these global companies who have him in their pocket, who lavish him with money, with corporate donations, ballroom donations, all that kind of stuff. They own him, and he is more than happy to do their bidding. But then it also goes, for the wind specifically, it also goes back to Scotland, the whole, we've talked about this several times.
Course, the view,
the golf course thing where, that was 20 years ago. And that's really what all started with wind. But what they did when they first came in is they canceled all future projects on renewables, whether it was solar, and they stripped a lot of the funding out. So that was that. But now what they're doing is existing projects that currently are online or about to come online. Mm-hmm. They're canceling them because they can't cut off the funding, because the funding has already been approved and passed through to these agencies. That already happened in the infrastructure bill and all that, in the Chips and Science Act. So now what they're doing is, since they can't cut off the funding, they're using a national security. They actually had Hegseth say that these wind turbines are a security threat to the United States because Russia or China or somebody could fly drones and attack American cities on the East Coast with drones.
Yeah.
And the drones can fly through these areas where there's offshore wind turbines, and radar might not be able to pick up the drones. That's why we are canceling renewable energy products, because of this ridiculous theory that, we could get drone attacks flying through wind turbines.
Yeah. Drones are more likely to be destroyed flying through working wind turbines. Mark my words, Ron. This use of national security as an excuse, we are going to hear more and more.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they're starting to say it about Greenland. We need it from a national security perspective.
For migrants, Venezuela.
Yeah. This is, and the problem with using national security as an excuse is they don't have to provide any evidence or proof. You can't put in a request for information. I mean, it's all kind of undercover.
Yeah.
And that is a problem.
We can't get into the details.
Yeah.
You know, but trust us, it's really bad.
Yeah.
Same thing they're doing with the Venezuelan boat strikes.
Meanwhile, the major weather events that are continuing and causing chaos from flooding and fires and everything else, and Trump still can't connect it to climate change. Like it's actually happening. You know, when I first used to report on climate change 20 years ago on the radio, it was something that was way off, and now we're experiencing it. And you know, everybody is being touched by it in some way. And if he's worried about immigration now, you wait till climate migration fully kicks in and people can't, you know, have to leave sub-Saharan Africa because they can't inhabit it because it's too hot. I mean, things are going to get much worse on that front. Let's talk about the data centers. This is a Howard Lutnick area, isn't it? You know, talking about, I mean, again, this is just an excuse. Data centers use huge amounts of water. They're supposed to generate their own energy. So there's a little bit of a hypocrisy here as well. Just set this up before I show the clip.
Well, I have an announcement to make. So
Okay.
you and I have always disagreed on universal basic income, you know, and
Yes.
that's something that I always didn't like, just from a standpoint of, you know, I have as an old school conservative, small
Have
c.
you come round to UBI? Is that what you're about to tell
I
me?
will say that AI has caused me to reevaluate my position.
Good on you,
Absolutely.
Filipkowski. Good on you.
Because what we're seeing here is this tiny handful of uber rich oligarchs are taking over the economy.
Yeah.
They're taking over our energy grid for their own for their own AI. They're all competing with each other. They all want to be first. They're competing with AI in other countries, although we're far ahead. Other countries are catching up, other places around the world. And so you have these handful of these super rich people that are competing with each other to be masters of the universe. And even Musk came out for universal basic income a couple of weeks ago. He said, because of AI, is what he said. He said,
Right.
we're going to, because I think what they're recognizing is they view a future world where a small handful of people are going to literally control all the wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's going to be very difficult to find employment
Mm-hmm.
if, you know, you have AI and robots and, you know, and they're going to be asking for all the power in the water, you know. So people have to give up that stuff. They have to give up their rights. They have to give up their ability to control their energy grid and their water. And they have to give it all up to these titans of industry, these oligarch type people. And so you have these people like Lutnick and Musk who are buying media platforms to persuade the proletariat, you know, to persuade the poor folk that, hey, these data centers and this AI stuff is really good for you and it's going to benefit you. And I think that that's why, if the smart ones like Musk, the cunning ones, are saying, well, don't worry, because we're going to have universal basic income for you. You're not even going to have to, a lot of people aren't even going to have to work there, because this is going to pay for everything. This is going to finance a great life for everybody. You know, I'll believe that when I see it, you know, but I think that this is really the coming over the next decade. This is going to be the number one issue, which is AI costing people jobs, taking up power, driving up energy costs, driving up water costs. And they are going to be fighting with the vast majority of people for resources to fuel their AI experiment. So it's literally, they're asking average working people to finance and give up their rights for their own destruction, to sow the seeds of their own destruction, to put themselves out of work.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be competitive in AI, that, you know, you can't put your head in the sand and let everybody else develop it and not us, but there's a responsible, reasonable way to do it. And I'm not seeing any responsibility, because what I'm seeing is competition and ego between very egotistical people that are willing to just walk over and do a lot of damage to society and to the world in order to win their competitions with each other.
Let's take a look at Howard Lutnick.
Overtime and no tax on Social Security is really going to help hum this economy.
And we only have 30 seconds left, Secretary Lutnick, but we want to win this IA race against China, but we also want to make sure that we're building data centers that have the capacity while keeping energy costs low. How do we do that in this country?
Okay, the way President Trump is thinking about it is if you're building a data center, you're going to give GIVE power to the grid and drive the energy costs of everybody around that data center lower. Donald Trump is going to bring lower energy prices everywhere that a big company, one of these big tech companies, builds a big data center. They're going to lower the price of energy in the entire area around it. That's what makes us all one team. Win the AI race, but drive down electricity costs in the area around those data centers so the people who live near those data centers are winners just the same.
Yeah. I mean, what he's not saying is that when data centers are built, they have to be built with solar farms next to them so that they can power themselves. And so with one breath, they're saying no green energy, but they recognize that data centers are going to use up so much energy, they have to have their own energy generation on site anyway.
And you see what they're doing here. I mean, it's just the propaganda of this is just outrageous, where they're trying to, people all over the United States are rising up at the grassroots level against these things.
Yeah.
Whenever these things are being proposed in various communities, one in Arizona just rejected one. This was a huge issue in the Virginia governor's race recently because Virginia has the most data centers in the United States. This is going to be, I think, in 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, one of the biggest electoral issues there is out there. It's barely registers now,
right?
But it is growing in intensity. And I'm talking about, this is an issue that Democrats could get all those rural blue collar white people that
100%,
they lost,
that
they lost in the last 30 years, could come back to the Democratic Party on this issue alone. And this is what I've been saying. This issue, forget about all the culture war stuff. They will come back to the Democratic Party if the Democratic Party stakes out a clear position in opposition to a lot of these abuses of these data centers. But you see what Lutnick is trying to do there with Fox's help is to convince those people, because that's their audience, the rural white people. They're trying to convince the Fox audience, this is going to benefit you.
Yeah, it's going to bring down your energy
bills
prices.
are going up now, but in the long run, you know, they're going to give you free electricity.
Yeah,
these huge AI data
not a chance.
It's going to be a great deal for you, everybody.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that they did back in the 19th century when they were building these polluting factories.
Well, this is what I was going to say. It's the
They
Industrial Revolution.
How it was going to benefit them, and it didn't.
This is the Industrial Revolution with no jobs for working people.
Exactly.
That's basically
Exactly
what
right.
this is.
Yep.
Okay. Finally, let's talk about Trump's endorsement of Mike Lindell.
By the way, so we just did the two issues that we care a lot about that hardly anybody else does.
Right.
But we're going to try and get them to bring them along.
We will. So Trump's endorsing Mike Lindell, the former My Pillow boss, in his run for governor of Minnesota. You know, I always feel a little sorry for Mike Lindell.
Story for the end.
Yeah, I really do. But I don't know whether I'm going to change my position. Let's take a look at Donald Trump.
I introduced him. He got the biggest hand. I hope he does great. He deserves to do great. That man suffered. These people went after him. They went after his company. They did that with me, too, but at least I knew what I was getting into. He was just a guy that said, geez, this election was so crooked. It was so rigged. He fought like hell. That guy deserves to be governor of Minnesota, I'll tell you right now.
I just want to be clear, I only feel sorry for Mike Lindell because he really should have just stayed being a My Pillow guy. Because he was a good employer and, you know, he made great pillows and that's where it should have ended. But when he got into politics and because he's an idiot, it all kind of went to hell for him and a lot of people lost their jobs.
So I almost fell out of my chair when he said this because here's because Tim Walz was having the worst week of his political career, other than
the debate
in the aftermath of 2024 election. But
yeah,
for himself personally, in his home state of Minnesota, where I think they do not have term limits, and he's now running for his third term, if I'm not mistaken. Where he said that they were not. He was on the fence about running, but then he declared, and he's gonna run now, and he's running. And then this massive welfare fraud scandal hits, and which he's in the midst of, which is really, really bad, legitimately a big deal in Minnesota. So much so, then this all broke like a week ago. And so much so that I was thinking, man, like there's no way any decent Democrat is going to lose the Minnesota governor race, but he actually might. This scandal might be so bad that that a Republican could actually win the Minnesota governor race. And I thought that would be really terrible. So I thought, man, maybe Walz really needs to kind of bow out of this race and let somebody else run. This is my thinking literally the day before that rally. And then Trump gets up there and endorses Mike Lindell. And I'm like, it's like, he might be the only Republican that Walz would destroy regardless of this scandal. So it's like, I don't know if he's going to be the Republican nominee, but if Trump is serious and he's really going to go all in and back Lindell,
I think he will.
And absolutely, I can see that he will be the nominee.
Yeah.
And there's no way he's going to win, that race. So once again, it's like Donald Trump finding like Herschel Walker and finding the worst possible person,
right,
and putting him up to run in a race that might actually be winnable for the first time in a long time for Republicans.
Well, that works for me. Okay, well, listen, we have to finish. But before we go, let's wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And however you're celebrating, I really hope it's a good one. And that throughout, through this darkness, there is some light with your family and with a little goose for lunch or whatever you're doing, that you can switch off mentally from the stresses of this kind of regime that is very much a dark cloud over us right now. So yeah, very, very Merry Christmas to you, Ron, to your family. Thanks for everything this year. And we'll come back next week and do another one, because we always do. So thanks for now, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Ron.
You got it. See you next week.